That's it. Kirby Smart and that Georgia defense, they hold, get the win, stay a one-loss team. Not only that, guarantee themselves the SEC East Championship. Georgia will be in Atlanta. Florida is eliminated. 21-14, your final score. It was not easy in the fourth quarter, but Georgia gets the win for the third straight year against Auburn. Sixth time in the last 7 games that Georgia has knocked off Auburn, who now falls to 7-3 on the season. 2 weeks from now, they'll get Alabama. A Tua Tagovailoa-less Alabama. But guys, again, was not easy. Georgia did actually get outgained by Auburn, 329 to just 251. But you know what it feels like? That Georgia defense has been really underrated, overshadowed. We don't talk about it as much. We feel like, I know over the course of the season, we've talked about Auburn's defense far more than Georgia's, and Georgia's stood up.
I think people have made excuses for the teams that they've played with backup quarterbacks. I think the statistic was 4 or 5 different teams they've played this year have not had their starting quarterback when Georgia's defense have played. But you look at it, they fly around, they're fast. You mentioned it, the great game plan and stopping the jet sweep. Very sound in what they do defensively. My problem still has to do with the offense. I mean, the offense today, Jake Fromm's numbers again below 50% completion. And I just wonder where they're going to be able to, if they get into a shootout with somebody like LSU, how they're going to be able to score with a team like that.
Well, obviously their defense is keeping them in those games, even those close ones. You can go back to the Notre Dame game, CD, same thing. The defense kept the game, intact, where eventually, the offense kind of gets a big play or hits a big run. And let's look at this, but let's talk about Auburn, because for 3 quarters they did nothing. And here's where I got to give them some credit. They outscored Georgia in the fourth quarter, 14-0, and it was 158 yards of offense to 3. Georgia's got to learn to finish those games. Auburn's got to learn to start faster, because Auburn started running it. They had some really creative play designs in there where they had some guys open and they missed it. But they got to start faster in these games if they're going to be able to beat an Alabama in the Iron Bowl 2 weeks from now. You can't do it all in the fourth quarter, and that's what happened today.
That's a good point, though. You go back to Oregon, started slow against them. Eventually were able to turn it on after creating some turnovers there. In Gainesville in the Swamp, they started slow. Today, they didn't get the start that they wanted to do. You love to see the resilience, but you'd like to see a little greater sense of urgency out of the locker room initially. Yeah,
and again, let me say something about Bo Nix. One thing I love about him, he's a true freshman. So everybody needs to remember that, okay? And regardless of whether you look at his stats today and you think they're good or they're bad or whatever, he's learning a lot. But you know what he is? He's a competitor. Like this dude, and the locker room believes in him, and he's a competitor. And I'm going to tell you something. This Iron Bowl is going to get very interesting, because you got a team right now in Auburn that, look, they got a lot of pride. They still got a lot to play for, right? And this game in the Iron Bowl, you don't think they would love more than anything in the world to give Alabama their best shot and knock them off at home and get them completely out of the race? So it's going to be fun to watch in 2 weeks.
Alabama's coming in limping. I mean, to say the absolute least. Again, we'll keep our eye on Raekwon Davis' status, but we know no Tua Tagovailoa for them. All right.